Picture a text called Gnostic, assumed for centuries to hide ritual sex behind a curtain, initiates only, neighbors not invited. That same text, the Gospel of Philip, describes this bridal chamber as not fleshly, not desire, not darkness at all. Say the word sacred marriage to most people and they picture candlelight, secrecy, something happening behind a curtain nobody else sees. Add the label Gnostic to that picture, and imagination fills in ritual sex, veiled initiates, a mystery cult's inner circle. It is a good story. It has almost nothing to do with what the Gospel of Philip actually says on its pages. So if the bridal chamber is not ritual sex behind a curtain, what did this ancient text actually mean by marriage? The good news is, we do not have to guess. Philip explains its own framing, in its own words, on the page. This text survived burial in the Egyptian desert, hidden in a jar for over 16 centuries before anyone read it again. The Gospel of Philip is not some fringe pamphlet whispered about by a splinter group hiding in the shadows of history. Philip places the bridal chamber inside a list of 5 sacred rites. What company does it actually keep on that list? Philip names 5 sacraments together: a baptism, a chrism, a eucharist, a redemption, and a bridal chamber, in one breath. 4 of those 5 are unremarkable to anyone who has spent an hour in a church of any stripe at all. Then, in the same breath, the bridal chamber. Not a separate vocabulary of suspicion, just one more sacrament in the sequence. That same passage attributes the purpose directly to Jesus. On a plain reading, this is not about 2 people at all. I came to make the things below like the things above, and to unite them in the place, Jesus says. Outside and inside. That is cosmic architecture the text is describing, not 2 people alone in a room. Philip then tells an actual origin story, using bridal chamber language to describe how something in the cosmos came into being. The Father of everything united with a virgin who descended, the text says, and a fire shone on that day. Adam came from 2 virgins, Philip says, from the Spirit and from the virgin earth, 2 paired opposites joined together as one. Was born from a virgin to rectify the fall, Philip says. Mending, not consummating. So what did Philip say about actual sex? Here is where popular imagination should have started, because Philip addresses fleshly intercourse directly and draws a contrast 3 separate times. No one can know when husband and wife have intercourse, Philip says, except only the 2 of them alone together. Ordinary marriage in the world is already a mystery, Philip admits freely. He is not shy about naming that plainly. But watch the undefiled marriage get separated from that one carefully. It is not fleshly, Philip writes, but pure instead. It belongs not to desire, Philip continues, but to the will. Not to darkness or night, but day and light. 3 negations, stacked, each one pushing this marriage further from the body and toward something the text locates elsewhere entirely. This is not a text straining to describe an erotic ritual while staying carefully coy about its most sensitive details. Now the detail everyone cites as proof of secret ritual. Let her show herself only to father, mother, the bridegroom's friend. Everyone else must yearn just to listen at the door, Philip writes, and feed only on crumbs, like the dogs. But the passage closes with the real key. No one can see bridegroom with bride unless he becomes such a one. not unless he is invited, unless he becomes such a one. The barrier named here is a condition of being. That single line creates a real problem for reading this passage as a literal rite performed on bodies for an audience. This is the moment the ritual sex reading has to contend directly with Philip's own three negations, stated in its own words. But Philip is not alone in this. A second Nag Hammadi text draws the exact same contrast from a different angle. The Exegesis on the soul describes carnal intercourse as a burden, done, then dismissed, faces turned away from each other. Against that carnal kind, the text sets an entirely different marriage. Once they unite, they become a single life together. The soul has been joined to her true love, her real master, the text says, quoting Genesis on becoming one flesh. But the union actually described is the soul rejoined to her origin, not one spouse simply rejoined to another spouse. Two texts, written entirely independently of one another, reach for marriage language and land in the exact same place, reunification. So the pattern holds across two documents. But where does citation end here, and interpretation quietly begin to take over? Here is where honesty matters the most. What these passages assemble together is a marriage vocabulary used to talk about reunification, things below matched to things above, a soul rejoined to her master, a fallen state rectified by paired opposites joined. But none of these passages says outright, in so many words, this is a metaphor for your own divided self. That synthesis belongs entirely to interpretation, an open hand offered to the reader, yours completely to take or set aside. You are free to let the cosmogony stand alone, as myth on its own terms, an origin story, not a lesson. And here is the one genuinely open question these four passages never settle for us, one way or the other. Was the restricted guest list father, mother, and the bridegroom's friend describing an actual communal ritual with real limited attendance? Some scholars read it exactly that way. A real rite whose precise shape simply did not survive the centuries intact. Nothing here forces a choice between pure metaphor and a real, private rite. The text does not decide that for us. What the text does decide, forcefully, is the one question this whole story started with. So what does that leave us? Whatever the bridal chamber finally is, cosmic image, soul language, or a restricted rite with a lost shape, one thing is certain. It spent most of its available energy in this text insisting on what it was not, over and over again. Not fleshly, not desire, not darkness. Three negations, stated plainly, before anyone in the audience even asked the question aloud. That is simply not the profile of a document smuggling something illicit past its readers under cover of secrecy at all. It reads instead like a document anticipating one specific assumption in advance and answering it before the reader ever arrives. It survived burial in that Egyptian jar, making this distinction on purpose, centuries before anyone thought to ask it questions. The least we can do now, this far removed, is let the Gospel of Philip finally finish its own sentence. The reputation was never earned from the actual pages. The text you were promised is not the text that survived. What survived instead is quieter, stranger, and far more interested in wholeness than the rumors ever bothered to claim at all. Philip calls that wholeness a bridal chamber. Other Nag Hammadi texts have their own names for it, still waiting to be opened.